10:06 a.m. We have a motion to approve the December 9th agenda, and you said as amended.
I have a correction. Under virtual, my name, it should be Rutland City, not Solid Waste District.
That's under the minutes. We're not quite there
Or
yet.
you
Yeah.
or just go to your agenda.
Any changes to the agenda?
Agenda's good.
We have a motion. It's been seconded. Any discussion or debate? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Approval of the November 18th minutes. We have a motion.
We need to change under my name, City of Rutland,
You were not present.
I'm virtual.
Virtual. Got it.
Yeah, I have a number of amendments to make as well. My new last name, there's only one P, not double P. Matt Patry is listed as Castleton, when I believe he represents Vermont State University, not Castleton, town of Castleton.
VTS you? Yeah.
Yes.
I would also like to see just in general that this list of attendance be organized in terms of, board members and the towns they represent, board members at large in the organizations they represent, and then staff and member of the public. Right now, it's sort of like all jumbled up together. So I think for the, as somebody from the public, it should be really clear, here are the people who are voting members of the board, here's the organizations they represent, here are staff, and sort of anyone else. So make that sort of overall for the structure of the board member list.
Second.
We have a motion, we have an amendment, it's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Open to the public. Is there any public that wishes to speak for the board? No. Great. Okay, let's move on to the meet fair share formula report vote to adopt.
So at the executive committee, we discussed the fair share formula a little bit. Want to bring something more comprehensive to the board. Oh, who's that?
Sorry, give me one moment. I just want to bring this up on the big screen first. All right. So the fair share formula report that you got in front of you right there. I'm just gonna run through this real quick. If you guys have any questions, just please stop me and let me know. So what essentially this is saying is that we've kept our town funding allocation requests pretty steady over the last few years. So we've reevaluated it this year using a formula that you can see in just a moment. But we're going on an allocation based on access, on time access to our routes based on the towns that they go through. So currently the county contribution rate is set at 5%, and it'll be raised 2% every single year. And this will make more sense in a second, but I just want to give you this example first. If your required contribution rate is 5% based on 20% of the total bus rate, or total route cost, sorry. Say that equals 2,000 and 7%, it's not going to be 2% over that 2,000. It's going to be 2% based on the total 20% of route cost, which brings it up to 2870.60.
Sorry, I don't see the file. What file are you guys looking at? Just
Oh goodness, I'm so sorry.
Tell your Jen.
I forgot to share the screen with you. I got too excited. Be so helpful you could see what I was talking about instead of hearing my rambling. All right. Just taking its time. Do you guys see my screen?
We do. Yep.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, so I'll just do a brief overview of this first page here. So essentially, like I said, we are going to be increasing the funding allocation requests from the towns starting in FY27. We just did a few so far this year with Killington. We increased them from about $1,200 to a request for $9,850. And Clarendon, we started asking for $2,000 from a base of $0 last year. So the meat and potatoes is baseline is currently at 5% contribution rate across the county based on 20% of total route costs. And this will be steadily increased over the next few years at a rate of 2% per year. If a town is currently funding higher than the required percentage, that's not going to increase until it crosses that threshold. So I'm going to skip down to the third page here just to show you guys this chart, and then we'll go based on how this is being calculated. So if you see right here on the left side, we have FY25, what each town contributed. The fair share with the 5% contribution was determined to be this amount. And the formula right here. So it's time spent per run, number of runs per day, number of days per week, number of weeks per year, times 20% of the bus rate times the county contribution rate. So that is for our public services, for O&D, for our older adults and persons with disabilities. That is based on population of the town divided by population of the county times the cost of each member. Add those two formulas together and you get the total town funding allocation amount that we're asking for right here in the fair share. So for example, with Brandon, they currently are contributing more to their fair share. So they will be contributing that same amount until the fair share county contribution rate reaches 15% in FY31, at which point it will be increased to 36, 43, 47. This is compared to something like Mendon, where their contribution in FY25 was $1,200, although their fair share should be closer to $3,500. Therefore, it's going to be increased in FY27 to a 7% fair share, which is $5,000 just about, and then it goes up on from there. So like I said, this is based on access. So based on our runtime, the grand majority of our routes obviously spend a lot of time in Rutland City. That's where we're based out of. So Rutland City does pay a higher allocation rate. But then you have places like right here with Killington, which also has a significant amount of time spent. So their allocation rate will be a little bit higher. And with O&D, it's just purely based on population. So it's a little more of a gradual curve with all of these. And this one isn't as much of an impact, but currently the cost per member of O&D is $628.34. This may have changed slightly since these were first done, just because we've gained a few more O&D members in the past month or two, but the figure should be pretty accurate.
Can you zoom into Killington?
Yeah,
Currently, we're paying $1,200. Did I hear you say, and this is the town, not the resort?
yes, this is the town.
Okay.
So Killington,
100, but by fiscal year 2031, you're jumping it up to almost $30,000.
yes, which is still under the current rate that Rutland City pays right now, it's about 46.
And the formula that you're using is how much time the bus is in the town.
Yes,
Okay. We're not taking into consideration that the reason why there's a lot of stops up in the Killington area is for work is getting, because in the beginning of you whatever you want to call it, essay or whatever, in the front, it's talking about how it transports people to work, school, and everything else, the front page, I believe. So the reason why Killington has a lot of bus stops coming into is because there are a lot of people coming from different towns to get to work up into Killington. I understand Rutland City, is less, it is still more than Killington. But Rutland City enjoys the benefit of a lot of people getting to work and to the hospital and to whatever from. I just think the formula, and I'm gonna say this, I think the formula is flawed. And I'm gonna say flawed, I mean, FLAW, right? Okay, nuance, the Long Island accent, okay? I just think, you know, especially when I start hearing explanations of how this bus is funded, and that some of like what now I'm gonna bring in Killington Resort, some of the stuff that they do, you know, the extra buses that they bring in, or whatever, and even the town, the extra buses that they bring in. I thought I heard that some of that money is used towards some of the contribution or the match or whatever. So if Killington decides to vote no on this, there's no bus. And then, I mean, I just think there should be a different formula. I really don't. I mean, I get the part that it's supposed to be equal sharing across. But then when you take a resort that is, I don't know how much they spend a year on the bus to the budget of running this bus. And then the town is kicking in another, I mean, it's probably gonna be $100,000 at some point. I'm just saying, like, going to 2030, even going this year to $9,850 or whatever I'm saying there. It's, I don't agree with the formula. I agree with busing. I agree with municipal buses. I believe that everybody should be taking in their fair share. But when you start listening to what I just said of how much other money is coming between the resort and to fund the bus, this is not the right formula of how many minutes a bus is in someone's town. It's supposed to be, to me, what is the benefit to the town? And a lot of these towns that are paying less have the benefit of having people in their town getting to places, getting to work, but then coming back and spending money in that town. That's my point, and I don't know if Chris has anything to say for it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I understand, you know, this is a simple way and easy way to calculate that, but it's exactly that, right? Like a lot of our staff are taking the bus down into Rutland to go shopping at Walmart, at Price Chopper, going to eat and visit the restaurants and whatnot down there. And so the value there needs to be, I think, some additional drivers around the value of the bus and the value that the bus provides to the destination, not just the time.
I don't think, I just, go ahead, because you.
No, I was just gonna speak to, the formula in that, the conclusion of, the essay is equitable allocation for all the townships. And when you look at that chart, you look at Proctor and Pittsford, we come up with our fair share and it's gonna increase to 15%, on the 5th year of phase in. And we are still gonna be paying more than our fair share. My calculations, Proctor's gonna be at 22%. And looking at Pittsford, they're gonna be considerably higher. I would think for me to support this program, by the 5th year of phase-in, nobody should be paying more than their fair share. If there's a algorithm that's used to calculate the figures, then you shouldn't be paying more than what that algorithm came up with. Pittsford and Proctor, you see, they're still not at that crossover. And like I say, Proctor's got to get up to 22%, and that's at 15%. So I would like to see it in the 5th year of the phase in. Nobody is over what their fair share allocation is. And then 2, I don't see anything where, the frequency of the calculations are done in that. In the agenda here, we're going to talk about service reduction. So that service reduction, I'm sure, is going to have an impact on what the fair share is. So, I can't support these figures that are here right now just for, those couple of reasons. There are some that are going to be paying more than their fair share, and I don't see a frequency of recalculations to get people at their fair share.
Fair enough. May I add one thing? I understand what everybody's saying,
that Killington must cost over $1.2 million. Money's running out. That's why this stuff is so good. I understand it's a lot of money to towns, but the big picture is it costs a huge amount of money to run these buses.
Do you wanna, we should address some of this.
Yeah, I know that's gonna be coming. I just want to throw that out there, that the cost of the service is.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I, before James speaks, I agree with what you're saying. I actually agree with what you're saying, like, when I first looking at this, but it's not my town. Like, well, if this whole thing is to pay your fair share, then why if I'm already paying too much? It should be you're only paying your fair share. What I think Chris and I are saying is that, you know, there is a cost to run this bus. And if the bus is $1.2 million to run to Killington, then it shouldn't be that Killington has to pay, because it's a benefit of the whole Marble Valley bus area. And maybe this formula, I say is wrong, okay? It's not maybe, I say it's wrong. Two reasons. If I was on your side, I would be arguing that point over there for Proctor and the other town that you mentioned. Why are we gonna continue paying more than our fair share when this whole thing is supposed to be pay our fair share? Okay? But what I'm getting at is that this is going to be a big issue in the next month, okay? It's coming on this fast, and there's $1.2 million to run the Killington bus. And everyone said this is the Killington bus. The argument from Killington town, and I think Killington Resort, because I'll let Chris talk to that, is it's not a Killington bus. It is a bus that provides service for multiple towns in our Marble Valley area to get people all over the place. And by using a formula that says, I don't know, 60% of the time, the bus is in Killington. Once again, it's flawed to me.
That's how it's.
Let's give Jay this chance to respond.
Sorry, 1 second. That's how it's broken down though. We take those routes and we run it through each town that it crosses, and that's where the minutes come from. So if you take Rutland City, they're close to $100,000 what they should be paying. That contributes to the RKC. I don't call it Killington bus, it's RKC. Because it's running from Rutland to Killington and servicing everybody in between. So that's part of those funds from those other towns that are going to that bus as well. I'll let.
Yeah, so I just wanna, I hear what you're saying, and I understand the business aspect and the economy aspect of it. We really can't pick and choose what access looks like, because what we're looking at is the access to the population of each town based on minute for minute of it being there. There's one day you have a car, everything's great, the next day you need a bus. That's what we're looking at. We're not looking at how it serves the economy or anything. We're looking at all of that, but it's a matter of access to people who live in each area, in each town, minute for minute. And we've broken it down minute for minute. And so it's not a heavier lift for Killington because of the businesses that are there or how the economy flows in and out of the towns.
I have one last question.
Before you get there, Jim, hold on a second. So I just want to give some other folks a chance to weigh in if they haven't. And I've got a couple of questions too. Well, one, I think what's confusing about this spreadsheet is you have FY 26 current and then fair share 5%. I think what would be helpful for people to conceptualize is apply this fair share without the 5% increase based on the FY 26 rates. So keep it at a total contribution of 88,740, but apply the formula so that folks can see, okay, if this were applied in FY 26 based on that total, what would the breakdown be? Then we add the 5% and go on through, because right now, if I were Rutland City, I'd be losing my mind. We're going from 46,000 to 138,000. So that's my first sort of suggestion and question, is sort of better conceptualize sort of the base formula before you add any contributions onto it. That's my first sort of more commenting question. My second question is, maybe I'm reading this formula wrong, but is it saying that you're taking the percentage 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15 of the total budget relevant to the operations? And how can you predict that number in future fiscal years when we don't know what costs are? They could go up, they could go down, and we don't know how much. So I feel like, is my interpretation of that correct? That you're saying 20% of that total cost to drive buses is now gonna be picked up by the locality?
Not 20%, 5% of the 20%, which is a confusing way to say it.
So what's the 20 though?
So the 20% is, so our bus rate currently is $103 an hour. So we're taking 20% of that, which is $21 an hour. So we're not charging the entire amount that it would cost to run a route. We do get some federal funding. We didn't think that would be quite equitable to put all of that cost on the townships. So that's why we're only doing 20% of the total route cost, which is.
So, but how, I'm confused, so it's gonna go from 5% of that 20 up to 15% of that 20?
It's 5% to 7 to 9% to 11% to 13 to 15, so on.
So those jumps, like if I'm in a town, like inflation budgeting way past what inflation or budgeting would look like. You know, what's confusing about this is it's saying, oh, you're going from 5 to 15, but over that time, Rutland City would go from 46,000 to 300,000.
Yeah.
That's a really confusing, like, that's not 15% in, by just looking at it.
Yeah, not just
that is way more, I think there needs to be way more information provided. The last thing, before you go on, is your plan still to roll this out for FY 27? Because most towns have already set their budget.
Budgets, yeah, coming up.
So like, it's, what I'm concerned about is FY 27 budgets are set in like October, November, December. Because they gotta be voted on in March, and the warnings for that voting has to be done in the second week of January. So what is your plan to roll this out? Cause like, Rutland City, Billy just said when he walked in this morning, their budget's up 2 million, they're trying to cut stuff. And I could see them trying to cut the 46,000, let alone 138. So what is your plan to message this if you're still trying to push this through to FY 27? Cause getting beyond the board, I think is gonna be hard enough, but getting into the towns and getting them to say yes to this in this fiscal climate, it feels a little tone deaf to what our region is experiencing financially in our towns.
So this year, we, like Tyler said, we're only looking at Killington, Clarendon, and one other
Yes, and then Rutland Township, I believe.
in Rutland Town. So those were the only 3 towns that we're looking at for appropriations this year. And then moving forward to this for next year. But I do hear, I'm picking up on the gaps in this. First of all, the fluctuation year after year. The inequity of the start that some are already paying more than the formula of this fair share equates to. And also that even though it's a 2%, it's 2% based on the total, which ends up jumping up more than 2%. We're either starting at the base and jumping up 2% from there, or we're increasing the entirety of it and then jumping up 2% from that new total, which would be higher than 2%. So I think that's what you're saying. So
Maybe part of the confusion here is that, like, are you saying,
You can't. I'm
what
sorry.
is this,
The math
what are you
sucks.
looking for towns
I'm
that?
sorry, that sucks. It's 5% this year. You can't say it's gonna go up 2% next year. What you have to say is 7% of whatever the next year is. And it's 9% of whatever the following year is, which is not a 2% increase a year. Because cost of inflation is at 2.8 to 3.2%. The math just is not there. But what I'm coming back to is my last question. I mean, the math isn't there, and I agree with you. This is saying like 2%. It's giving you a number of 2% each year. but it's really not taking into effect that point of inflation for 2028. You don't know what the cost is to run the bus at that point. What you're really trying to say is in 2028, you're gonna be at 9%. That's what I think you're trying to say, 5% this year, 7% the following year, 9% the next year. You can't put a dollar amount to those future years because you don't know what the cost is going to be. You're saying 9% of the 20, and it doesn't,
But we don't know.
the math is bad. I'm sorry, math doesn't lie, okay?
Let's
But
get
what
that chance.
my last question is gonna base off of what you just said, Devin. This year, like the town of Killington just kicked in $65,000 for this shortfall or whatever, because it came on, and I'm amazed that we were able to find it. And then we got like another $10,000 between other places. But once again, what I'm told is that some of that, and this is what I've heard in past meetings, some of that money gets kicked into some of this contribution number. Maybe that's a misunderstanding, but that's what was said. Now, my last question, this is really my last question. What are you gonna do when Rutland City that gets $100,000 something dollar bill and Killington is put up for a vote for 20 something thousand dollars or 9,800, and then it goes out to, and we say no? What we say no. And this is where it comes back to that my Long Island accent again, floored, okay? All right, is that we really need to get businesses to other than just saying Killington Ski Resort and Castleton College and whatever, understanding that there is a benefit to a bus and we need to get money from them. I agree 100%, it costs money to run a bus. But to come into towns, and believe me, I have backed this bus for more than 10 to 15 years and found every single penny I possibly could. And it's amazing I was able to find $65,000 out of the fund in a month's notice for this year. But you're gonna go in front of the town taxpayers, you're not gonna go in front of them, but you're gonna have to come in now and say, because the $1,200 automatically goes on, you wanna go to $9,800, it has to go up for a new vote. That's the way our legislation is up there. If you want an increase, you have to go up for a new vote, and you
Unless
put
you
that
ask to be
there.
put in the budget.
But,
Unless you ask to be put in the budget.
well, no, our rule is the first year you ask, you're in continually, okay?
Some of us.
And then if you want to increase the dollar amount, you have to go ask again to the voter. And the voters can vote no on that.
Yeah.
So now what are you gonna do?
All right, now, can we give her a chance?
Yeah.
I was just going to say that it's apparent there's some work to do on this and it's not going to get a vote today, so we'll go back and work on this more.
No, I think let's have the discussion though, because I think it's important to sort of, and I think this board needs, I think we need to reckon with the fact that you are facing this massive shortfall. So we do need to find revenue. And I think we're also, these municipal reps are doing their due diligence for their towns to say hey, my town's rates are gonna go up. We're barely making ends meet now. And, later on in this agenda, we're looking at a 20% service reduction at the same time. So I think there are some concerns. I think you guys are doing the best with what you can to make up for all these problems that have been plaguing and really not well understood, and part of those are our fault too. But I will say with this proposal and what we got this morning, I think what I would like to see, which I understand, the conflict is there's an urgency to act now, but this board in their due diligence can't get things the morning of that are 20% reductions in service and be expected to act on them. Again, only speaking about my own experience with my own board, but when we changed our formula last year, which doubled our dues, we spent 6 months working on that. with the board to get them up to speed, and then we spent another several months working with the towns to like let them know this is coming. Rutland City, you guys didn't love that number. That was a big number. You know, went from 1,000 to 15,000. That's still 15, not 140.
Dollar a head.
Not 140. So I do think like, how do we rectify the urgency with the due diligence? And I'm struggling right now. I'll be honest, like when I saw that this morning, I'm like, don't feel comfortable doing anything with anything today, but how can we finish the year without dipping into this reserve fund if we don't act? So I don't know, I wanna hash this out more at the board today and understanding like how much of this can realistically get done, and if you're saying only Clarendon, Killington, and who? Rutland Town would see the increase.
So those letters have already gone out. That was put out over a month ago. Those request letters.
Okay, so how, if that is the only increase, and so I'm guessing that's is that the,
It's
part of the confusion, I think, is like you're showing this FY 26, but it's really FY 27. Right? Because we are in FY 26.
Right, FY
But the request is for next year, so it's really in FY
FY
27.
Some time to work on that. That's why I'd really like to, I'm sorry, I didn't make a stump, but just go and clean this up a little bit and make it a little bit more comprehensive so that we can.
So we're not making this request this year, is what you're saying.
Only 3 of them.
No, that's not true.
So it's-
You know, that's like 26,
I know.
26,140 for Rutland City. That's the current year that ends June 30th, 2026. And then.
But they're saying they're making a request this year. I think that's the confusion.
So at 27, you're asking for 7%.
The letters that I sent out in November said all the amounts under FY 26 current. That's what all the requests were for.
So that's our confusion, is that's actually an FY 26.
Yeah, that's, I meant they were sent in FY 26. That's when the request was done. That's my bad.
So the FY 27 line that says 7%, you're not going to be asking Rutland City for 138,000. I think it's 130,000.
Yes.
Yeah, it's,
But for Killington, you are going to be asking for.
9250.
No, the 9250. You're not gonna be asking for the 13,000, or whatever that is, in 27.
So it's 2,000 for Clarendon, 9250 for Killington, 3850 for Rutland Town.
Those are the only increases this year.
And Clarendon went from 0 to 2,000.
Yep.
Killington went from 1,200 to 9,250. Rutland Town went from 3,500 to 3,850.
Yeah.
I wish I would have known this before the town of Killington said they would put $65,000 of their budget, because we were working off of the $1,200. That's what I was working off of. I would have cut out the 9250 from $65,000. That's would have got us through this next year or whatever, because that's all I'm trying to do is get us through a year. The way this is coming here, and the lack of support from businesses and communities of all around, because I agree, this bus will not be running in a few years, because I'm telling you, and I've had this conversation, like Jay and Ron, like they don't, people don't support it. Now, if you're gonna come in and tell Rutland City in 2027, be prepared for $100,000, let's call it $100,000 increase, because you really don't know what 7% is in 2027. You're taking a guess off of the 2025 budget that 138 is
that's
1%. So now all of a sudden, that number in 2027 is probably going to be with real inflation around $165,000. And there's got to be a better formula of finding how to get money from the people that actually benefit from this. And I get it, and I understand it.
So not putting this on the backs of the towns is what you're saying? Like,
Yeah.
look for like chamber partnership to try to get town businesses to buy in. Is there any precedent for this? Maybe Jeremy knows, maybe you know from TBT time. Do businesses pay in to bus service in other regions. Okay. Jeremy, do you know, like, what's a successful model that we could look at? Because we do have a really strong chamber here that we could try to leverage. Because I know some businesses like Karis Reels, for instance, like couldn't operate without the bus, right?
Yeah, I mean, essentially what it really comes down to is just pounding the street and just trying to get as much from the businesses as possible, demonstrating the value that it brings, bringing people into town, shopping, work, all of that. V-Trans has been asking not just Marble Valley, but all the agencies, because all the agencies these are the same conversations happening. How do we get more money from the towns? And then it always trickles back down to the businesses as well, because they have a stake in it. They might not know the value that it's bringing. So that's where the education comes in, or just good salesmanship. I don't know. But yeah, certainly from the businesses is where, even if it's only just a couple percent here and there, it's definitely going to add up and certainly will help. And it might ease some of the tension in asking for, these big increases from the towns.
And I think we got to be able to present the holistic picture too, as far as, right, like, so these numbers are based on if operations stayed, right, as is, where towns and businesses might be okay with, okay, I don't want to pay that, but I'm okay with cutting a route, right? Like we did that up here for the winter. Rather than have two buses go simultaneously, we're going to lose one, and so we'll still have one go back and forth. But that's where the towns and businesses need to be able to see what the other levers are that can be pulled, so then they can put a value on, okay, yes, I think this increase is worth it, or no, I'd rather a reduction in service and pay less.
Thanks. I think what's lacking from this is that it's a projection. It's not, these are not hard numbers, but it gives an idea of an increase that would, and how it would steady off. In the conclusion, it does also talk about, if we're there, we're there. We don't have to keep increasing. The point isn't to increase indefinitely, but to come with a number that adds some level of ownership of public transportation in each town. And then, like Jeremy's saying, like everybody's saying, going and asking the key businesses, hospitals, even school districts and schools, Karis Reels, different businesses up in Killington that have personal investment in their public transportation. So this is just a portion of it. If everybody approved every single number in FY31, that still wouldn't cover the local match needed. So there is still a level of going out and trying to create those partnerships. So
I'm just,
and I understand these are projections and not hard numbers, but we all need to operate and budget with hard numbers, right? And so I think that's one of the frustrations too, is that, like, to Jim's point, so he went out and he raised those funds, and then to find out, oh, we didn't actually need to raise all of them, right? But Marble Valley needs it anyways, right? And it's I know it's a difficult thing to do, but we got to get to a point where we do come up with the hard numbers, and then the consequences of, like, this is the number if this is the service you want. If not, then this is the service you're going to get, because we have to we have to budget actual numbers.
Yeah.
Year over year.
So I'm gonna zoom in on Rutland City, since I'm going to be a resident of Rutland City in the next 18 to 24 months. I just bought a piece of property in Rutland City, 19 acres, 31 days ago.
The one
On Shepherd Lane,
Nice.
yeah, Buddy Pine Hill Park. But I always get stuck on math. Okay, but I'm gonna pick on Rutland City. FY27, it's saying it would be $278.88. That's 7%. And then FY28, it says it's only going up to 9%, but that's a 13.5% jump from 138,278 to 177,740. And then if I divide 177,740 by the 217, you're going up even another like 14 or 15%. But we're saying here that, oh, you're only going up 2%, and that's where I'm saying the formula is wrong. So maybe the formula is right, but it is taking into account the inflation that I was thinking about. Okay, but by putting this out here, you're making people think like, oh, we're going from 7% to 9%. But no, you're going up 13%. If I take 138,000 and divide it by 295,000, I mean, you're up 50%.
I think you got to remember that the numbers there are 5% of the fair share. Well, you've got to look at the total fair share. You know, that's gonna be 5 times higher, and it's gonna be 2% of that big number, not
Well, that's what I'm
2%
saying.
of the number you're paying the year before.
That's what I was getting at. I was asking, and then I was told that it was just.
Yeah, you know, like, you know, for Proctor, I was saying our fair share, 100% is $23,000 annually. You know, so it's 5% of 23,000, it's 7% of 23,000. So it's not 2% over the previous year.
But that's
It's
she
2%.
But that's what I was first starting and saying, are you taking into consideration of? And I think even Devin was saying that, you know, you got one thing. We're only here to do the next year budget.
Originally,
I wouldn't want to look at, we're here to do the next year's budget. That's what I'm here for.
well, and I just want to, when we were originally looking at the fair share formula, we were stamping it in time for this year. I think that there, through some more discussions, there was this talk about this 2% increase and what that would look like, because that was kind of a easier way to move through the years in appropriations. So this was just a quick overview of how that would look. And I'm hearing everything that everybody's saying. I think we can refine this more. I really do think it's a year over year, and Chris, it would be done in an appropriate amount of time, September, August, whenever those appropriations should be starting. Those letters would be going out and those conversations would be taking place. So that's really how we want it to operate. And I think that we can convey this a little differently and bring it back to the board in a way that might be a little more receptive.
Yeah, and, you know, I think instead of this board just being sort of like beating this down, how can you utilize this membership to support something, you know, or flexing some of, you know, we have municipal reps here, we have a resort, we have a college and a healthcare provider. You know, how can they be a benefit to try to changing this formula? I think we all can completely agree, the formula's got to change. A static formula is not good for the region or for the agency. You know, I think definitely some sort of middle ground of recognizing that towns are struggling. They appreciate predictability and they appreciate like a real white glove handheld service to like onboard change, because in the Rutland region, change is very feared. Even with our more progressive towns, it's not something that folks like are willing to accept lightly. So I think if we start from that shared understanding and collaborative sort of like foundation, maybe we can get to somewhere that meets this need. I'm curious, so this was sort of borrowed from the TBT model?
Yeah, it's been more,
It's been more, okay.
but it is, the base is borrowed.
Okay, yeah, because I think predictability is the number one thing in striking that sort of balance of, is this a reasonable ask in the time we're in? And understanding that, like, yeah, Marble Valley's struggling, but so isn't our town, so isn't the region as a whole, and maybe even our businesses too. So I don't know, I wish I had a magic wand and some more like productive feedback that could like get us to an answer. But I don't, I'm sorry, yeah.
I can appreciate all that. I'm wondering, I'm just wondering if, yeah, go ahead.
I understand that 46, not enough, because that's been there for what? 5 years?
longer since I've been on.
Yeah, raises stuff. So I understand that funding has to go up. No problem. To go to 138 could be a problem. Because that's a penny on the tax rate right there. And people will buy. If there's a combination of fees for service from the individual and then the businesses subsidize that 138. So we're at 75,000 that the city can deal with. And then the rest is subsidized by business people and the fees or fares that should be there.
I mean, gun to the head right now, Billy, if the bus were to go to the city, like what level of increase would they even be willing to entertain?
Well, we know that 46 has been there forever. I would think it should be at least $4 a person. Right now, you're at 3 something.
So you're thinking more in the context of a population. I do have a little bit of a concern about the road mileage time scenario. Only in that, like, it doesn't feel necessarily equitable for towns that are more of a pass through. That like, there might be a lot of road mileage, but few stops.
Right.
Which I think some of this formula tries to get at, it looks like. But for me, it's like a great example, and this is such like an unnecessary, like small component of the budget, but like Mount Holly paying $1,000 down the line in FY 31, they don't feel like they get any service now. And that's like a very small piece of this, but, yeah, I mean, Rutland City is carrying the weight, right? And they would.
Curious on.
Oh, right, because you're considering O&D as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is where, like, you say Rutland City is carrying the weight. It's, you know, I have all respect for everybody in Rutland City.
But it's the modulator, like, yeah.
But I've been on this board for just over a year, and my understanding of the math is that it costs X to run this whole bus, okay? And there is a bus that goes from whatever, 7 in the morning until 6 at night. And that's what really the purpose of the bus is, the 7 to 6 at night. And that the town of Killington, or not the town, but the businesses in Killington are asking for extra services above that 6 o'clock. And I've been led to believe that since we do that, and now finally we're paying more, but we're getting what we're being billed, okay? It's not our fault that we weren't billed correctly in the past. We're paying for what it's supposed to be. But some of that money is used to offset some of the 7 to 6 or whatever. So Killington may be, as a resort and businesses in the town, actually paying more than Rutland City. I don't know the math. What I would like to see is, how much does this whole bus cost for Marble Valley area? The total dollar amount. But this whole bus, for the whole, for Mount Holly, for every, how much the towns that have to kick money in, okay? Because we're going by towns. How much is it costing to run this complete operation? How much money is coming in from federal and state, including V-Trans, whichever way they fill into? What other monies is coming in from, let's say, Castleton College, I think, pays money in to get some students from Castleton, BTSU now, over to Killington. So I think they have a special bus for that. But some of that money is to offset, I believe, maybe I'm wrong, offset some of the costs between the 7 to 6. And the same thing with the resort bringing in, some of that money is used to offset that day operation. So minus that out of the total cost, including those routes, how much money then do we get from all these V-Trans and everybody else? What is the dollar amount we're really looking for as a community? And when I say a community, the total for all of the communities in. And then how do we go to some of those businesses and say, this is what we need to raise? And maybe some of those businesses will put in We don't ask them for a second round. And then whatever's left over from there, then we do some kind of formula of what is supposed to be paid by each town. Right now, I can't go by this spreadsheet.
So usually I like to think about it as like a percentage of the total budget, I guess, like, and maybe Jeremy knows this. Across the state, what is generally accepted as a standard for local contributions towards a total budget? You know, is it 2%, is it 1%, is it 10%? Like, what is that Goldilocks percentage?
I asked other providers and I received around 5% is what I.
5%, that's a lot.
Five, I thought, yeah.
So we have a long way to go.
Yeah.
This 5% is, what is that? That's $500,000?
I don't know. Our local match needed after the state contribution was about 985,000.
So it's,
I was going 16%.
I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about what is the town contributions percentage that across the state, that's what I thought you were saying.
yeah, that's what I'm saying,
Okay.
yeah.
I asked the providers, and I had gotten around, some said 2, some said.
And that's relative to the match, not to the total budget.
So you're saying $900,000 is what is.
985.
That's the cash you need to access the federal funding, that sustains this cost.
After all the federal funding, there's $1 million that's needed to be,
After the state funding,
after the state funding.
there's $1 million that's needed to draw down this.
Okay, so now, just correct me if I'm wrong here, there's this $1 million out there that needs to be raised. But then there's also these extra buses that like TSU pays into and whatever. Is any of that going towards the $1 million?
There's no question.
Or are those, I'm asking the question.
Even the 100% that we get to run the resort, that all that money has to be put towards our local match right now. I mean, we don't even come close to what we need. It's.
So I think that's where some of the confusion in the last couple of months, because it was leading to like me sitting here is thinking that what you're saying now is that the run that extra bus, you're using those funds to the match, but it's not covering. So what you're doing is you're robbing from Peter to pay Paul. And that was not brought out. It was ingrained, no, but ingrained in my mind and maybe yours too, that some of those funds for running those buses, which I have said, and nobody said, no, you're wrong, because I just said it 25 minutes ago, that some of these extra buses that are running up in Killington are contributing to the, but then it's still taken away from what you're saying. But that wasn't said before. So, I mean, if you want $9,200 from the town of Killington, we start one of our meetings is next Monday for budget. And appropriations and everything's gonna have to come in. And you're gonna have to come in and you're gonna have to say, well, if you gave a letter to Killington, it's gonna come up and say, we've been doing $1,200 to the bus for a couple of years. I think it went up a little bit a couple of years ago or something like that. And now you're gonna go up to $9,850. And it's gonna go to a vote, and it's gonna be a separate line item for a vote. And I would vote yes, okay, because I believe in the bus. But the constituents out there, the majority of them, they don't care, they don't take the bus. They're gonna vote no. So that's why my question is what happens if Rutland City voters and Killington voters say no? When it goes to them next year in 28 or whatever, I think it is, for $138,000, and then it goes up to 20 something. Now all of a sudden you lose $150,000, $160,000. What is the bus gonna do?
I'm gonna tell you what's gonna do, it's gonna start cutting. We're
Yeah.
gonna start cutting roads, we're gonna start cutting everything.
Okay.
We're gonna get back to basics of just running city.
Right, but I'm sitting here as a person that's trying to say, help keep the bus going.
I understand.
But I'm also being realistic of the world that we're living in today. People can't afford, they don't want to afford $3 more to their bill because they got 30 things that are $3 more. And so, I don't know, maybe when I look at that sheet, like, so you mentioned how much in reserves and then we have to go, like, to get to that 15% in 2031, do we actually have enough money in reserves to carry us there? Or do we need to start making cuts right away, which we got 20%?
Yeah, that's on the agenda.
But that's just for this year, and then next year, and then all of a sudden, and then, you know,
I think that's the crux of the issue. I do think we'd sort of beat this one to death, so we can move on, but.
I have 2 points actually with bank.
Sure.
Yeah, I would emphasize the sort of concern regarding road mileage, just because I imagine there's a lot of towns that are pass-throughs and they're gonna ask, like, you know, how much are we actually using the service? This is not actually like, we're asking for it, we just happen to be on the way. So like, for example, Mendon just ran some calculations, Mendon, you have to pay a third of what Killington is, but Mendon has about a sixth of the ridership to Killington. So whether it's ridership or something else, I just imagine at the town level, can be a question of like, how much is this actually being used? And maybe our share should be related to the actual usage. So I don't have answered there, but I just want to make that point. And I also want to ask to what conversations have you been having with the hospital and the other community care networks? Because, you know, when we were in, you know, there's this local health group that somebody in the health department's running, and somebody at RMC did this whole calculation of how much money they lose for lost appointments. And they're not taking in a dime, and they receive massive amounts of service. So I'm just curious what the current sort of conversation is between RMC and what that looks like. Because
We've been having quarterly meetings with them. They're aware that we are looking for, we told them to start 28,000. That's going before, several things are going before the VP of with relations. I'm not sure, I don't know what his title is, but, or is, but they're going to be looking at, how we serve them now with discharges and if there's any reductions that they could do, but that has a cost impact to them. So they really have to look at the numbers hard. We can provide data to them so that they can better understand the drop offs at different times of night. That would help us save money. They do understand it's either we find a way to work better together or it's a reduction to the services that they're currently being provided. And you know, not trying to sound like we're threatening their services that they're receiving, but just really looking to have some sort of understanding that most hospitals pay towards public transportation service.
And have they presented them with the cost for them for missed appointments? Because they've generated that analysis internally. I don't know if it's been shared.
They didn't share with us what that cost was. When was that?
The 2020 Community Care Network was $500,000, and that was 5 years ago.
I thought that was it.
But they're losing again, I think they were directly able to contribute, you know, $200,000 or $300,000 just to transportation.
Yeah, but I'm happy to reach out because I don't think that the person who's doing this analysis is like connected to the leadership team in any way. So I think they're trying to do a gap analysis, but like, I'm not sure that that is even filtering up the leadership. So I think that should be part of the conversation to show them just a little money just flying out your door. It's just people aren't able to get to the telephones.
Yeah,
That's great.
okay, I guess, yeah,
Good.
ready to move on?
Yeah.
No, we appreciate you trying to think outside the box and do something that is desperately needed. So know that like we're here to support you guys. I think we just need to do our due diligence.
And we don't want to roll out anything that doesn't feel equitable. So coming to the board, this has been great.
And it's something I have to sell to my board.
Yeah.
It's another 10 votes.
Yeah, and thank you for filing. This is not an easy nut to crack and like, obviously it hasn't been, it's been avoided for a long time for a reason.
Yes, I realized that. I figured that part out.
So let's move on to October October financials.
So in the packet, we have the October financials, looking kind of the same layout as last last board meeting where we've been September, I believe. Currently, we do have September, pretty much invoiced, and October invoiced as well. So those funds, a little tweak should be on their way. But basically, I'm just going to skip through this, the business as usual.
This is what we reviewed last week, right?
You know, this includes October.
Okay.
October was added since then, yes. So we're looking at, net income of 125,000. No big jumps, like I said, we still have October, revenue to coming in as well as September as well, so that should be another 500,000 added on top of this.
So was this a month that was not in the red? It's awesome. That's huge. That's huge. Okay, fantastic.
We do have some, big hits that come up in the first quarter,
Mhm.
and as far as Medicaid is concerned, our finals to Medicaid, we're looking like we were under, we had, how do I put it? It's not, we were in the red by about 130,000. So the revenue that we received on our PMPW, was not enough to sustain the increase that we had. So we'll see where that ends up. It always spikes, and then ETA is really trying to come up with a different formula. The board has been working really hard to figure out our next steps on a way to move past something that's more equitable because we share profit and loss. So Marble Valley specifically has been pretty stagnant at 9.92% of the share based on the PMPW for all of the other providers in the state. And so although we may be serving more on rides or they're costing more, it's still, there's a gap in the revenue. And so.
So there's
share
been a
that
hard
deficit.
look at that? Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not sure if we're gonna go with a consultant or if we're gonna try
But
to.
that'll really impact next year. Okay.
Yeah, it's not gonna do anything for this year. So hopefully, I think we ended last year at 110 negative. I think so we ended up 110 or 118,000 negative. With Medicaid. So there's a lot of discussions other providers are looking at the losses that they have had in the last 7 years, and some providers are looking at almost $1 million loss in Medicaid in a 7-year span. So it's.
Yeah, and if one pulls out, the whole system crumbles, right?
I don't know.
Because I believe that's what happened several years ago, was we had to cover Medicaid services in Windsor County, right? Because they pulled out.
Contract.
Yeah,
Right.
and I think that if we hadn't, the whole system would have crumbled. So that is scary, because that is important service more than it is clearly revenue at this point.
So they're really looking at where can providers be even more efficient? And I think that's going to be the target percentage that Marble Valley is specifically going to look at once we dive deep into the analysis of what we're currently doing.
Well, that's something, Jeremy, you and your team are gonna have to reckon with, is looking at the performance report, the rural public transit is not doing super well. So how much longer can we keep the model up? And hopefully forever, but that is a concern.
So for 2025, what will we in the red total? You get that, what was the total? Forget about just singling out Medicare. Total.
Because Medicaid lagged, we were at something to the effect of, I think it was either 384 or 400.
So say $400,000 totally in the red.
Yeah.
What are we projecting for this June 30th of 2026 to be in the red total?
It depends on what we do in the next 6 months.
Yeah, what's the do nothing scenario?
380, 314, 960.
That is not.
Oh, but do nothing? It would be about 500.
Which is what you guys have been communicating kind of all along the last several months.
And do we have a projection for 27? We do nothing.
Projection. What do you mean?
Well, FY 25 and then June 30th of 25, we were, say, 400. FY 26, if we do not, which ends this June, we're saying 500. Do we have a projection of what we will be in the red FY 27 if we just go nothing?
We wouldn't even be able to draw funds in FY 27. We wouldn't be able to, we would have to do something. We won't be able to draw enough other funds to run all the services, no matter what.
Let's run over to policy number 3, review and vote, up next.
So, this went before the executive committee and did get a unanimous vote, to
Recommended.
to recommend to the board.
This one was very straightforward. Did everyone have a chance to review? Do you want a further explanation from David and team?
This was the holiday.
Yeah, this is like the shift differential and non-standard hours.
Basically, what's happening is because most of our services now don't fall into the third shift, we are removing third shift from this policy. We're going to keep the rate on the second shift the same. However, instead of being an hour per hour shift differential, the differential will start when somebody is scheduled for a shift. And 50% or more of the shift falls within the second shift, which is 3 to 11. This will also shift. Right now, it's offered to all employees who are hourly that work within these hours. So it will end up in this policy being only for operations and preventative maintenance employees. And
I'll entertain a motion to adopt the changes as presented. We have a motion? Yeah, go ahead.
Second. If there, everything in red is being added, everything crossed out is taken out.
correct.
All right, we have a motion. It's been seconded. Any further discussion or debate? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I'm gonna abstain, I don't know,
Sure.
finances are really comfortable and I can't vote yes.
Okay. And we have one abstention. If the record state. Okay. Local match deficit service reduction report. Here's the other big meaty item today. Okay, so folks should have received these Excel packages ahead of the meeting today. But they are up on the screen, so we'll turn it over to the staff to review.
Is there a way of getting printed copies in front of me right now, so it wasn't? Does it was just, it's like 10 minutes. Am I right up here?
Spreadsheet.
The MVRTD deficit reduction.
Executives. Paper summary.
Nope.
She just might get a copy, so.
Yeah, the summer didn't go along with it, but I suggested just do that.
So,
Picture day, you guys getting your picture taken.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
What's that?
You guys are getting your picture taken.
Oh, I won.
Yeah.
Today.
Picture.
That thing they just approved, Jim, that was just to simplify things for me.
yeah, I get it,
But
but
the money parts didn't change at all, it's just,
I,
it's really,
It's good to hear.
yeah,
Out west.
yeah.
Nice.
I mean, I took my son back, he was thought, and he crushed it, a monster.
Really
Yeah.
awesome. What was it?
It was a 10-pointer. And it was,
Wow.
should be quick.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Must be proud.
I'm not that.
Hey, it was 450.
I'm good. Got one.
If you have a spare.
Couple weeks.
Art?
Thank you.
Yes.
That's my original question.
That's,
It's got some.
wow. What was, did they land out there?
No,
I didn't think so.
it's probably 170.
Yeah, so it's like a 2.5, 3-year-old.
Yeah, it's probably there, so.
You pull that to a bit more. Oh, really? Pull that out?
No, I made him drag it. It's fine. He shot it. He dragged it.
You gotta be dragged.
I see.
Alrighty. Give it another minute. Come back in.
I didn't know, so it wasn't fine. Eventually I'll have one set to where he's.
That'd be nice, yeah.
Was it you the other day who was doing the double?
It was, that went on for like 2 days. Sometimes my site's better than other times, it's weird.
Alright, let's jump into it.
Okay, so first of all, I do apologize for this coming out so short notice. It was kind of a heavy lift. And I wanted to get it before the board this time and not another second. I do want to also say that, we may need a meeting in between the next board meeting if possible. So if that's something can happen, that would be great.
It's something exciting. It's all.
So I mean, right now, how it states, to re-review the bylaws, but I think the executive committee really only makes recommendations, but there may be a provision, let me pull it up, about urgent action can be taken by the executive committee between meetings. But I'll look that up while you start.
Okay. So I'm just going to try to walk through this, starting at the top, where you can see that there's the federal funds base grant revenue of 3871. That's just showing that those are funds that we draw down from the feds. Then we have the local match needed in order to provide all the services that were originally slated for FY '26 is $1,860,000. And then for FY '26, the total projected of revenue of local match that we're going to be bringing in is $1,624,000, almost $1,625,000. There are some changes as you go through that top spreadsheet. We did receive the MTI grant, so that gets added to the top base grant revenue. So.
Municipal Technology Initiative, right?
Mobility.
Thank you.
And then some service reductions in Killington are notated, and then we did receive mid-year amendments. We received 100,000 in admin and 150 in state funds, which can be used as local match. And then in the local match, that 271,000 represents specifically represents our capital projects and purchases. So as we move down through this, you can see that we're at 314,960 still needed to close that gap. And then if you go right directly down in the middle here where it says route reductions with the blue line, these were looked at for the ridership impacts. They were looked at for continual access if these reductions were made. So those were the two major considerations that we looked at here. And just running through them, we're talking about taking the in-city routes, the 4 routes in-city, and running them on the hour on the weekends. We're looking at cutting Saturdays for Middlebury service. We would have offices and routes closed on federal holidays, which in this instance, the remainder of FY '26 only has 1. So there'd be more impact in '27 if we move that policy forward. We would cut back service, cut the city service, backup service, which is the 6 to 8 a.m., the 12 to like 1:15, and then the 4 to 5 or 5 to 6 in the PM. And then, Proctor, we would reduce, right now it has 2 a.m.s and 2 p.m.s. We would reduce it down to 1 a.m., 1 p.m. Fairhaven again would do the same and cut weekends from Fairhaven, but that wouldn't happen until after the winter service. As recognized that a majority of employees heading up to Camden are stationed in Fairhaven. And then the Manchester, we would cut Saturdays, RKC, as of April 6th to June 30th, we would cut the last loop. And then run West End Hospital on the hour on the weekdays of the in-city, which was a major savings, but it's also a big change. So it's a pretty critical one. As you can see, the total federal savings are 320, but because our local match is 50% of that, we would be saving 160, which would still reduce us down, we'd still be in a deficit. So then you move over to the left where we talk about some admin reductions. We already took on a couple staff reductions, then we did some staff increases. And then we have some operational night coverage reductions that were able to be salvaged. And we would be closed on the federal holidays. And
Who will be closed on?
that's admin staff would not be here on federal, on
Just the admin staff,
not the service itself, right? And then we would remove slow holidays from being a day that staff would be getting double time. So it would, we're looking at potentially moving a policy where we have CTO instead of PTO and holidays, which would allow us to not have to double pay when somebody works on a low holiday. Savings of around 96, give or take. We have some other administrative changes that we're making that I do believe would fall in here that aren't depicted here. That would probably keep that number pretty true, which brings us down to negative 58,369. There are more groups that and reductions that we identified that we could increase or decrease this gap with. But we really wanted to prevent this for now and start here in hopes that we could ask for, during the Second Amendment, we could ask for another, hopefully some more local funds from the state. And otherwise just make as many cuts. Mainly operational funds and just changes to the way we're operating to save where we can.
How much impact would it be to just across the board? Because I am thinking about like administratively, the more changes you make across more routes, that's a bigger burden, at least on the onset. You know, slap me down if this is insane, but what if we move the entire city fixed service to on instead of on?
I mean, it would probably almost cover, because I'm just looking, I see two that there's a 45, a 46 and a 20. That right there's 100 and this looks like 160 or something like that, all the other ones, and then you got 135. So it would come close.
Yeah, but what would you actually be saving? Because the bus is still on the road.
Stop something.
Well, do you still have to run two? Can you just run, because you're running two per group right now?
We're running one per.
One per.
So you mean like alternate, just cut 4 buses to 2 buses and alternate?
I will say though, the reason we went with West End Hospital was because the numbers.
And that's why I'm just throwing it out there, you know, 30-minute headways is like big city level frequency, you know, we don't see that.
It's nice.
It's really
It's
nice,
really
and I don't say that lightly by any means, and I think this is a nice spread, just throwing it out there.
I think that would be talking to South and Hoffman, because the amount of mileage that it covers and the amount of passengers that it picks up be tough.
Yeah.
For those two. That's why we opted to maybe do the hospital bus.
Yeah, it's lower ridership. It's not confusing for riders, the sort of 30-minute headways on 2 routes, and hour on the other.
changing it, I think is.
That's true, yeah.
That's why you want to stand on.
None of this is easy.
So I'm gonna come back into the local match needed. We just finished saying like Killington stuff, we're using Bob, Steve, Fake, Paul, whatever, okay? But we're still doing it. But we're using a $41,835 service reduction in Killington. That's not the 7 to 6 of regular route, right? This is the additional services that,
Those services are services that are notated on the CERS that draw federal funds. 41,000 was what was.
but
From
from
our
7
case,
in the
that
morning
is
to
identified.
7 in the morning to the 6 at night. It's not the reductions from like, because then in the other service area over here, it has RKC weeknight reductions. The riders can shut, impact or whatever, but that's an additional cost. It has been saying that we're taking that money, using it for the match, and if we're gonna really run our books right, we shouldn't be doing that. Or we should really be showing what each different group really costs.
I just want to point out, the one at the top is the winter, and then the rest is the.
Yeah, I know, what I'm getting at is the service reductions, I thought that the resort, I let them do what, the resort and KPA, they decided on what cuts they wanted. But they were cuts outside of the 7 in the morning until 6 at night.
But all of RKC is reported to the CERS because it's an extension of that commuter.
That's why this keeps on getting back and forth, this is, you're using that on the board, but we just been saying that those extra buses that. So if Killington, if all of a sudden Killington just said, we just want to have the regular 7 in the morning to 6 o'clock at night bus. We're done with doing the nighttime stuff, okay? Then you wouldn't have that $41,000, you would have more, I guess, because then we're not running it.
Right.
But you wouldn't have the income coming in for the offset of the 20% match. This is where I just keep on going back and forth, I get a different answer each time. That's okay though. But then I got over here, being told like the hospital has something out that says they're losing $500,000 a year or whatever. Okay? And we're looking to try to find money and not put it all onto, let's say, a ski resort or a college or towns. But it looks like it says that we're gonna be cutting some hours in the hospital area too, or the city weekends run on the hour. How much is that gonna affect the hospital? And are they gonna lose more business from there because of that, because it's now on a half hour? And I think I see some other requests in here. Oh, yeah, the last one, Ron Weston Hospital. Say 935, and this is where I think like. It's like we're making cuts, but and I don't believe, even though I'm not complaining about the price, I'm just sitting here wondering what my constituents are gonna beat the hell out of me on, okay? And, I mean, that's the fact, Billy, right? They're gonna beat the hell out of us. But we need to raise money somehow, and it's like, we're just coming in with cuts instead of going to the hospital, like, sitting there and saying, like, you're already losing 2,000, they said they were losing, I guess it was, what I heard was 500,000, so 2025 now. Now you're gonna make a cut. I mean, what does that impact like? And if we're looking at $314,000 up above, and then all these other group reductions, it's just gonna get us down to 58,000 loss, well, you got like a $250,000 difference or whatever there. Wouldn't it be worth talking to the hospital before we vote on these reductions and somebody else and try to raise some $250,000 somehow?
Or at least say to them, hey, we're gonna cut the service unless you give us $135,000.
That's what I'm getting at.
But like, how much time do we realistically have?
You have no time, it's last minute, sorry.
Like, bingo,
So
sorry, we waited to the last minute.
Part of this is, I mean, there wasn't a clear picture until recently.
I'm just,
when I say we wait to the last, I'm not putting the blame on it. I'm saying we, I am part of we.
Yeah.
Okay, I am part of we, so let's make sure that is straight, okay? I am part of we.
Yep.
So, but what I'm getting at is that now next, we are going to make a jump off a cliff with a decision that maybe we should be going and spending a 4 or 5 hour meeting with certain big businesses and towns and saying, for this upcoming year, we need to, like what we did in Killington,
Absolutely.
we need
But
to.
here's the thing though, Jim, I totally agree with you, and I don't have confidence in these numbers. We went through this exercise for up at Killington, and then we just get an email to reduce some confusion. We are now going to run the same hours every day versus the weekend and weekday. And so like, I just, I have very little trust in these numbers, and that these savings are actually savings, and that is the right number, the gap that we need to cover.
That out there because we're already running this RKC in the wintertime and we're bouncing back and forth with changing the schedule so much. There's so much confusion and I don't want to leave anybody stranded. So why can't we just run that same RKC at night at the same time? That's what you're talking about?
Yeah, well, that apparently comes at a cost, and so like we've had all these meetings to figure out the cost, and okay, we can't raise that money, and so we're going to reduce service. And then I mean, I don't disagree that it's going to be confusing for riders and whatnot, but like that is what's leading to the lack of trust in this overall process and what the numbers are, and we're trying to do things to minimize those costs. And so we have those meetings, and then to come back and be like, oh, we need to run it anyways. Well, then so are we just adding to the deficit? Are we going to be now build more for it? And so like that's where from a board standpoint, like I don't have a high confidence level in these numbers, and that even these cuts will do the trick. And are we, is it just putting a Band-Aid on it and next year we're going to be going through this again? I just don't.
You're right, that is $13,900 for that to run. We looked at it this morning, Ron sent that out. Yes, and it does change the number here. But so,
Yeah, I mean, it comes back to what Chris is saying, like, we did this exercise and everyone is trying to do the best that they can. But this route that we're talking about is not the main function of Marble Valley. This is extra. This is what the town businesses are asking for. I mean, what I see out of it is that I was told that I need to raise like $6,250. I went on and did. But then I see a sheet this morning or last night that shows the hours and this and that and the schedule. And it says that the cost of $103 is $71. I don't really care about the $5,000, but it's just the numbers don't match up. But the town's businesses worked together in Killington and said, this is the bus schedule that we want. And these are the hours that we want. And it's going to cost us X. And now Chris and I forget about us being on the board. We sat up there and did this as a community and went through the different groups and said, these are the hours that we want. We're sitting here now as board members and being told, we've got this serious cash problem, okay? And I get it, like, you're trying to do what a boss is supposed to do by not confusing people and whatever, but it's 13,000. So 13,000, if that's, in the next 5 years, that's another 150,000 with inflation or whatever. And it's like, if the town said, we just want this. I get it.
I was trying to help out.
No, I know, and I appreciate
You
that.
guys want that service, so.
That's what they
Starting
want.
tomorrow,
That's what they want.
Okay.
That's what they want, because we as board members, as the town, we put a number together, Chris, right, of what hours. And now we're sitting here as board members, and we're saying, we're financially have to be, we're on a board, we're voting, we're responsible for and the town asked for X. Don't give them more than they asked for. Anything on that, Chris?
No, I mean, that, like I said, that goes back to just the overall numbers and understanding, and having the confidence in those numbers.
It's that confidence in, and I understand where a nonprofit organization employees are, that is their life, and they're looking for, and this is why they're here, and they're looking for the best. But we as board members have to step up and say, sorry, the best interest to keep this thing going is to go with what the town asked for. Thank you very much for doing that. I really mean thank you, okay? But we have a cash problem with this system right now, and $13,000 makes a big difference.
So, and I just want to add that this is just a plan to get us through this fiscal year. And then we have this next 6 months to look at this and really figure out what next year looks like and what reductions make it down the long haul.
So how do we get this group in front of, with a plan, in front of the hospital, Casella, Caris, Allen, any of the big ones, and saying, this is the issue,
The industrial park with your,
okay? The industrial park, the airport, Walmart. Killing Ski Resort, okay? I mean, invite them to the table. I mean, I already put it, but invite them to the table and say that we are facing a $314,000 deficit for this year. And we're gonna be making cuts unless we can get something from help from these businesses, okay? And I don't know, maybe each one of them comes up with $5,000. Just, but we have to have that conversation. We cannot not have that
So
conversation.
the top employers in the region, RRMC, GE, Killington, Green Mountain Power, Casella, Vermont Country Store, BTSU, Castleton, Community Health, Community Care, Hubbard and Forge, and OPM.
Do we have contacts of each of those places that do something like this? And
Well, we do through Cedar.
so if I have to, if this board, if I have to take charge of this, give me permission to go to Cedar to get them, to get each one of these top businesses or whatever you pull there and have this conversation. And this is not a hit at public or federal government or municipal government. Fucking slow, folks.
Well,
We
that's
just need to have a
my
meeting.
one concern, and I will play devil's advocate for the staff here, is that
It's not their fault.
that scenario you're laying out, I think would likely be the gap filler in FY 27. But I doubt we're gonna get the hospital who just got beat to smithereens yesterday on their pediatric care unit with the closure discussion at the Green Mountain Care Board. To spend more money when they're down millions already. I don't think they're gonna be like, yeah, should we send you the check tomorrow? I don't think they're gonna do that.
So then you gotta think out of the box. We're saying it's 314,000 or 400,000, I think we said earlier for this current, then we're saying the following year would be 500, or maybe it's 300 plus 400 for the next, whichever the total
We
numbers
don't know
are.
what the next
Then,
step
then we need for 26 or whatever, we should be working on the budget for 26, or know what's gonna be about 27, whatever it is. Okay, but take those two together, those two numbers together, we have enough money to float us for the next 6 months or 9 months or whatever. But if we take the 300,000 here that we're gonna be short, and let's say 500 for the next year. So then we're going to all the top businesses, or whatever, we're looking for, $800,000. As what you're saying, they're not gonna give us a check within a week or a month.
And
But if they have a year out, maybe we can get
in
something.
their fiscal year.
I just think that it's important to understand that also, and Jeremy may be able to speak to this a little bit, that the funding that's coming to us is limited as well. And other providers are having budget issues, and GMT is in a $1 to $2 million deficit. That will have to be
It's after they dump their own roads.
after they
Yeah.
dumped, and so really, I don't think we have a choice but to look at reductions for now. It's inevitable, we have to do it, it's, yes, we can go and we can get some.
I wish I would have taken that attitude when you guys first came to me asking for raising money for the winter. And we did it fast.
We did it fast and that was great.
No, but I'm saying, but
Sorry, may I cut in? Letters were sent out in July of the increase. Nobody reached back out to us. Nobody. And you guys as the board.
That's not true.
it's not, it's, you know,
That's just not true.
So
I didn't
that's
say
what I'm getting at. You didn't see the letter, okay? It was never brought to me as a select board member. It was never brought to me as a zoning administrator. And this conversation really just started up in the last few months here about how much problems that we have. What I'm saying is that if I had that, I wish, and I wouldn't, but I wish I could have that attitude. I am not a cut and be defeated person. I am a, let's get this going. I agree with Devin saying maybe the 300 for this year is too much. So then my mind goes to the next step outside of the box. We know we're gonna be about 400 or 500 short the following year. We have to try to clear this year and next year. We need to have the conversations with all of the local chambers and top businesses and say, this is where we're at. Instead of, you know what? I think Brady, and I don't even like him or whatever, I think he was down a bunch of Super Bowls ago, like 30-something points going in the second half. Why did you say we're down? They came back. We need to come back. I'm sorry.
I have a question for you on that. Do we go to all these local area businesses and say, we're tumbling down fast, we're almost completely out of reserves, and we just spent 800,000, we're looking at 800,000 spent in the negative and.
No, go to the cedar, or go to the cedar.
Then go.
You go to the cedar and you don't get into the specifics, but you say, we're facing an $800,000 worth of cuts over the next 2 years. And this is how we believe it's going to affect your businesses and your towns. And we need to raise this amount of money extra. We need to work with you top businesses. I mean, we're public now. I doubt anybody listens to this or whatever, but we're basically already saying out loud, we're screwed. I was gonna use the F word. We're screwed. Okay? And we need $800,000 to get through the next 18 months.
All right, so I think we're kind of going in circles here, but I think I hear what you're saying. So you had mentioned, is there an opportunity to sort of like come back together, maybe at the end of the month, but still have an opportunity to consider these cuts if something alternatively doesn't come around? Because each month we delay, that's that much less of savings that we can get, right? Because we're only looking at 6 months of savings.
Really, we're looking at 5, because if we don't start this now and get through all of our public hearings and everything that we have to do and scheduling and notifications to the communities, we need time to even do that. So when we delay, we'll be talking February.
So make the cuts for now, but do I have permission to go to Cedar? That's all I ask.
You know, I think I'm dropping an email now if you want me to do that.
And I'll get a hold of the folks at Cedar. Billy, if I can help, you can call. Respond, and I know you will.
So, we can have an emergency meeting, wait and see how much outreach we can do, if that's.
Maybe the cuts will be good for the meetings that we're gonna have to have in groups. Here's the cuts. And then we can bring it back.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, do we have a choice? I think it's what we need to ask ourselves. Or will we, is the short-term pain of 6 months of cuts outweigh the long-term pain of like, if we go into next fiscal year, 400 in the hole, what are we gonna do?
That's where I, how many years we stand $400,000 loss if it's only one. But And then it comes back to like, you know,
Well, what's in the fund balance?
934.
So we could do this for 2 years and we're done. We're shut.
you know.
But when we spend that money, we can't draw the funds, we don't have the, we don't have that.
If I draw,
We spend it, we can't do it.
it's
That's what I say, add-
So it is it. That's it.
This is not your regular math business. It's as you draw, you're hurting yourself on the matches. I get that. I don't get the exact numbers, but I get the philosophy or the statistics of as you draw. you
Is
have
there a
funds.
risk, with the reduction in service, or is there a reduction in V-Trans or federal money
Yeah, that's what she said.
commensurate?
Yeah, it's 50/50. The operation funds will go down with this, which is okay. We need to get to our local match number that we can afford right now, and then look ahead to next year and strategically with a couple months in between us, do what Jim's saying and figure out what the future of our services look like.
You only have to do these meetings if you're removing service, not if you're adding it back.
Well, yeah, these can be temporary, but some,
So I'm gonna make a motion to move forward with the cuts that are presented to us today.
We have a motion on the table to go through the cuts as presented today. Is there a second? Is there discussion or debate?
Yes, we're talking about 6 months, the cuts that take effect January 1st. Are all the people, the community's gonna be forewarned of this coming. There's people that use the service that are gonna have to make
Yeah.
arrangements, and we're talking 3 weeks.
And on the worst side is that if we keep it going and we don't move forward with the next step, then you're writing some letter for me and Wisconsin to get this year. You're talking about giving people a 9-month notice that there will be no bus. Right?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay?
Can I
Let's
ask
face the
one
facts.
question too before we take the vote? I do not know what the city backup is. What is that?
That's a bus stop to bus stop service within Rutland City during the times that hour and a half before the service starts at 8 AM, hour and a half after it ends at 5 PM, and the 12 to 1 when the drivers take their lunch break. So it's basically micro transit.
It's the coverage because we went to, when COVID hit, we reduced our service.
Right.
Because we covered from 6:30 in the morning to 6:30 at night. We're still on that coverage.
So we have 40,000 people using that service right now, 40,000 riders. Okay.
Yes. Yes. But that's only half a year, so really it's 60.
Yeah, my one concern with that is based on those timeframes, it's clear that those people are going to work and coming home.
It's actually a lot of people going to the clinic because they don't want to make this the actual city house at 8 o'clock. Because it's the bus stop to bus stop and they don't have to wait in between going back to the transit center and waiting for the next loop. They can call, get on the bus. It's a convenience.
It covers
Yeah,
everything.
not bad.
It's heavy. I mean,
You're depending on public transportation, have to work with what the public can afford.
and again, I'm sure there's people that utilize it for. That's.
So
Oh, we still
I
have,
don't like to cut it, no.
do we still have recovery and job access funds?
So, yes, yeah,
As far as the moment.
yeah.
Can we backfill with that for the short term? Okay.
That's,
what were we gonna do with that money before?
Well, we've always kind of not had the best plans with that money generally, right?
it gets used in a trickle down
How
effect.
much money is there?
Was 40, it's down to 20?
That was 20, down to 16.
Are there any of these little tiny?
Well, we could ask people, like, can we get more money in the recovery and job access fund?
Jeremy?
That's only for their, is it 30 days?
Yeah.
Yeah, for your.
I'm sorry, I feel like putting a pistol in my mouth, but are there any other pockets? I don't really, is there any other pockets of money that we should be aware of that can go to? Is it that the only one?
Yeah. so-
Doesn't get used to it, all right? It's just, I hate spinning around.
we're still free fair zone at the moment, everywhere, including the mountain too.
There were some conversations about that in our last senior leadership meeting. Talking about just throwing in the fare boxes that we had and rolling out, basic level on all of the services and letting it be cash again and dealing with the administrative burdens of it as is. Very back the envelope.
How much, that's what we look at. We want.
We used to generate around 120,000 a year.
That was about 700,000 riders versus what are we at now, 450, so
So,
it's six, that,
so we're charging a buck, whatever we're doing, right?
50 cents.
It was 50 cents.
$2.
Now with all the added stuff from the resort, I'm not sure how that would look. Are we charging all the international workers or is that just a free fare zone?
Yeah, this is a
That's the
much
thing
bigger
we think
conversation.
about,
Yeah,
but,
it's
It's
nuanced.
in the city alone.
well, that's what I was thinking, like, we just put
City
a
alone.
fare box in the city, maybe just to get it
The
started.
reason why I'm saying that politically, I can sell it to the taxpayer, because people are putting some share into it, plus the taxpayers. They do like hearing that.
Can we get a proposal for
Next month,
yep,
But this comes back to then, like, for Killington, okay, where it's supposed to be a fair share, that's why I'm here, like, saying fair share. We have employees, some of the employees live in Killington, okay? And there was a program in here a long time ago that you had to pay, like, I don't know, $125 per season. 150 for winter and then 150 for summer for your employees. So the employees that are living in Killington, that are taking the bus, or for anyone that wants to get a bus pass from Killington, it's $150 for the winter time, and then it's $150 for the
for
summertime,
the employees.
for the employee, for whoever. If I want to take the bus and I'm not working there, if I want to pay $150, I buy a card and I show it. Otherwise, I got to pay $2 or $3 to get on the bus.
Alright, I don't. You pick up a lot of workers on that access road, Jim, that's a huge hit.
What do you mean, huge hit?
I'm only.
That if the businesses that, this is where I'm like just messed up in my head. The businesses are businesses and they need to keep as much money as possible. But if we're having a problem with buses and there are employees that are taken, they need to pay for a bus ticket. That's the problem. Going and saying Killington Ski Resort, give us $150,000 and that's it. Or going to Killington Ski Resort and saying, you've got 200 workers and we want to have, I don't know, $50 a head. You gotta get somewhere, whatever. Then at least they feel like they're getting something. Then each one of the inns or whatever, they feel like instead of just giving $500, if they got 10 workers and they got at least they're getting something. You're telling them your worker is getting to and from work.
so we have a motion, it's been seconded, unless you're amending that motion,
No,
then it's on the table. Is there any other discussion?
to be clear, the motion is to move forward with the cuts for now.
Correct.
For now.
We'll only do 1 year.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Yes.
We have one opposed, for the record. Thank you. Okay,
Then I'm gonna make a motion that you're putting a letter together for this group of who, and I'll lead going to Cedar. I'm not gonna do something unless I have approval from the board. I'm not jumping ahead and doing something, and then it's like, I need to have approval from the board and direction from the board. That's all.
yeah, I think this is well within the purview of the ED to do this without board
Okay.
approval, and she can
I
authorize.
wanted to respect the minutes that I'm going to be put, and then I will reach out to the Chris. Okay,
So we agree in concept.
we agree in concept.
Okay. We are approved. Thank you for putting that together. I did not think that vote was gonna happen tonight, but here we are. I don't like it. No one likes it. I'm sure. Do we have any other business?
I just had some quick shares. HVSS, which is our new, scheduling software, is going to be, launching the training and implementation January 5th. So we'll be going through that as an organization. V-Trans is looking for all providers, that are not currently on the simplified allocation methodology to move to that in FY 27. So, although we did just have our allocation approved by the board, you will be seeing that within the next 6 months as well. That'll make, it'll just streamline the whole state with all the funding that we get, so that'll be good for both Medicaid and V-Trans. The state did share that they are short on O&D funds, so that's not just the Marble Valley issue, that is all the providers. At the mid-year amendment did come back looking for more funds, they don't want more funds. So just sharing that, we did kick off the winter season, and to be moving along. And I just wanted to also give recognize our staff. Yesterday did great work when the Sheldon Towers had a fire, and they worked endlessly from the moment it happened all the way to about 8:30 last night. Nonstop.
We had a busy day yesterday. I also had 2 fatalities in someone's home in the neighborhood. We're not sure where that is yet.
Do we have ridership data? Are we collecting that currently?
We are, so Sprint's running the 4D program, and I have utilized a little bit of it even just to do some of these numbers here. So we're able to hone in a little bit on times and.
Not be shared in every report packet.
Sure.
For monthly ridership and ridership for the fiscal year. Because that was something that's previously provided for the board, and I know things went a little crazy, but if we have that data and it's easily accessible, I think that should be part of the report packet going forward.
Okay.
Yeah, it's helpful for us when those conversations were about that.
Exactly, yeah.
And honestly,
You said monthly and then annual
Yeah, in fact, basically it's just like every single month.
comparison for last year.
Yeah, you go, I think look at some of the report packets, there could be ways to improve it, but.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Is there any other business?
Just a question. And I contacted the town manager and notified them that so they can post it on our web pages and Facebook, that the only runs that will be running in Proctor on January 1st will be the 8 AM and 3 PM.
Can I get back to you on that?
There's gotta be these public hearings first, and I think that would be the appropriate time. Yeah.
We want to we want to do board, internal, and then community, and,
Can you just make sure you CC all the board? when
Yes.
You guys like set that schedule, so folks like, Albert can be represented. Yeah.
Yeah,
okay,
yes.
absolutely.
Okay, there's one other piece of business, and it is congratulations, Jay, your first year.
Oh.
Is, and we could not be happier. This is a huge undertaking. I can't believe it's been a year, but also it's felt like a decade at the same time. And you've weathered some, not even storms, some hurricanes.
hurricanes.
Yeah, with real grace. So thank you so much. We hope you continue to refine your process and stick around and build the team around you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And then, what time is it?
We are adjourned at 11:59
Sure.
a.m.
Thank you.
Barely missing the PM.
I'm going from this, and it's Steve, phase 2, phase of, that's my next.
But that's a tough road to go down.
How many units are
I'm trying to represent my.
Oh my goodness, following.
And I know what's